What's up, guys? So in Season 4, we have a massive amount of updates to itemization, but a lot of people want to know, what is the best role on every single category? Now, it would definitely depend on your class, but this build is going to be for basically 90% of the player base. If you're playing Thorns or some sort of niche thing, these may not apply, but pretty much these are going to be the best roles. It's kind of like how we did the video back in the earlier seasons of Diablo. It's how to increase your damage and defense, basically the guide to see the best roles on every single item. This is basically the new temper system and kind of going over what are the best roles. Now keep in mind, you can't temper from the same family of the role, so basically you can't roll like life 2 times on an item with the temper system, but you can have flat life roll on the item and then also temper the item with additional life, but essentially you can't get it to roll again because you can only temper from the same category 1 time apiece. So this is going to be the update. So starting right off, as far as in the helm slot, keep in mind some of these you can swap them in and out depending on the build that you're playing. Like if you really need a very specific unique, you can maybe move this to another area. So for the helmet, the Juggernaut aspect is going to be one of the better ones to go ahead and select, and you want to try to go over your armor cap because the monsters in Season 4 can actually scale beyond 154, beyond Sigil 100. So you actually want to roll Juggernauts, and then if you want to get plus armor on a lot of pieces of rolls, you can get that. However, I think the easiest way for majority of players is just to get Juggernauts as well as get Disobedience. This is going to be a season where you're actually going to be wanting 2 of those. So in the helmet slot, ideally you want to look out for cooldown reduction, mana per second, and maximum life. Those are kind of the stats that you want to roll on most builds. And then if you can temper, get maximum life. It's one of the better stats to roll. And then also Frost Nova size if you're playing the Sorceress, or some sort of skill. Now, depending on the class you're playing, you may want ranks to a very specific skill on the other stats, the 3 ones that you don't temper. But for the most part, the last tempering one is some sort of like CC or damage versus some sort of condition or some sort of something to be met for your class. So that last one, while it does say Frost Nova size, it's great for the Sorceress. Obviously, if you're playing Druid Necromancer, you would run something else. That one is going to be class dependent. Now, next up over here on the chest armor over here, we are also running Disobedience here. And again, that is because monsters can scale beyond level 100 content, Sigil 100, 154 monster level. So if you do want to do the type of content, like you're like, I just want to go ahead and do open world content, then you don't need to go ahead and throw double aspects of defensive stats like Disobedience and Juggernaut. But if you do want to go beyond that and you want to go ahead and push in the pit, that would be something that would be ideal. But another newer stat that has actually came into the game, and just like in the helmet slot, you can actually get that mana per second. Mana per second plus maximum life are really good rolls. A lot of the damage reduction things have been rolled off of some of the defensive categories, but now getting that mana per second or spirit or whatever character class you're playing, that is what you definitely want to be rolling on a lot of pieces of gear so you don't have mana problems in the game. And then getting some sort of other defensive stat like life, dodge, those are all great stats. Now, this one is also class dependent. Even though I'm the Sorceress right here, I just put it as a note. So I put resistance to all elements. If you're running any int-based class, you do not really need to go for this because usually you can fill this up. But if you do need to get resistances to be maxed out and the diamonds aren't going to be doing it in your itemization for your gear, then you do definitely want to try to get resistances capped out. You can get individual ones, or you can get a couple rolls of all elements and then just throw diamonds. It depends on your build. Some builds, you may not need all of them. You might just need like 1, so you can just get 1 roll. So that's going to be class dependent. And then the maximum life is great. And then there's also another defensive stat that you can get to have some sort of condition, a slow, a stun, a freeze. Just like the other one, this one is going to be class dependent on the tempered one. So tempered, usually life is kind of arguably the best one. Dodge is also a great stat just to get in general. You can get that instead of life. Those are really good defensive stats to roll. Now, on my item over here, see that it's in red, and the reason why is because this is going to be class dependent and build dependent, because I actually have 3 aspects that are going to be basically for whatever skill that you're using. A lot of times there could be something revolved around like cold or earth or something related to your key passive. So I put 3 of them to be the same one. This one is Frozen Orbit. Obviously, if you're playing a class that doesn't use this, you don't want Frozen Orbit. but it's basically more than likely going to be ranks to your core skills, your attack speed and crit strike, or your actual skill. So basically, instead of core skills, it would be Frozen Orb, but just to make it simple for most classes, you want core skills, and you can actually get both. Now, it depends on if you want to get more attack speed or if you're going to be capped. The game is supposed to only let you go and get 100% bonus attack speed, but there are certain things like accelerating or certain ultimates that actually break the cap, like Essu's Ferocity can also break the cap, going beyond 100%, and that is also something that you're going to have to factor in. But usually crit strike chance, attack speed, core skills, and then your ranks to skills. Again, these can fluctuate depending on what you're going for. Now, as far as the offensive slot, this is something that is kind of subjective. So there's flat damage, which can go up to 45%, but if you go to one specific element, like cold, for example, the rolls on the temper are going to be harder, meaning that there's more chances to get something you don't want. So the number is higher by 10%, but more than likely the damage is already okay. It depends on what you want to go for. If you really want to go for that risky chance, then yeah, go for that cold, that poison, whatever you're going for. But if you specifically can go for just like the all damage, I think it is just arguably better because most skills in the game won't be all your damage. Sometimes there will be something else that gives you some sort of damage. And again, your chances of the temper to get something that you don't want are much higher if you do roll a very specific sort of element, if that makes any sense. And then also freeze duration could be good too. Again, it's a utility category over here is what you're going to be throwing on. So you're kind of limited. You can't just throw like cold damage and regular damage. The game doesn't let you do that. Next up over here for the pants, I put Crowded Sage. There's actually two aspects. There's one that gives you restoring your maximum life. There's one that also gives you resources, and there's also one that can actually help out with fortification. So depending on the class that you're playing, this one is a little bit more flexible, but this one is really great, especially if you're playing like a rogue earlier on, because dexterity is naturally going to give you dodge. So you can get easy amount of like 20-ish% dodge on most classes because you're just going to get dex anyways. And if you have like one roll on a defensive stat, this is actually really good. If you want fortification on your class and you normally can't get it, this is huge. Or increasing your maximum life, it's absolutely amazing. So again, on your defensive stats, this one over here is the pants. So dodge, life, int, those are all great things to look at. Again, a lot of these are kind of flexible. And then for the temper, I think max life is good. Again, there's some flexibility there. And then if you want to get on utility, some sort of whatever your class is, stun, freeze, something like that. And then for the boots, you definitely want to go ahead and get movement speed. Dodge chance is a fantastic stat. Your max life, your class's main stat are all good. And then you can temper on movement speed or cooldown reduction for your class's mobility skill. And then utility, again, you can get whatever. As far as the aspect goes on boots, it's very flexible. A lot of people may be interested in running some sort of unique boots here, like on the Sorceress, you can run Essu's, you can run the Beastfall boots if you're playing Rogue. There's a lot of flexibility here in this category. And then for the weapon over here, I just put Edge Masters because it's kind of like viable on everything, but I'll show you guys here in a second what other things can be good. But basically, you have a lot of flexibility here. So you'll see where it says Wand, Temper, lucky at chance. A lot of utility is going to be better than getting some sort of flat additive damage, but on like a wand, lucky at chance is going to be superior. And then you also have like some sort of resource cost reduction, attack speed. Don't worry about getting that flat additive damage. There's so much damage in the game right now with all the other bonus rolls that you're much better off getting attack speed specifically, or if you need extra resource, that chance to restore resource is good. Speaking of resource, also on the boots, you can actually get resource gen. It's just you can only fit 3 in the category, so I'm giving you guys some flexibility here, and I'm showing you guys kind of the best stats in general. But ideally, once your resources are totally fine on the boots, if you still need it, well, then you might not need max life or dodge chance. But getting dodge chance at least one time, combining with the Crowded Sage, is actually excellent. But anyways, going back to the weapon over here, on a two-handed, just as a side note, you can get resource cost reduction, and that is something massive. But you normally cannot get it over here. It depends if you're running one or two-handed. So, and the class may depend on certain rolls on certain things, depending on if it's unique or not. But pretty much, just getting some raw damage, or again, the cold damage, you guys can see the difference over here. This one rolls the highest 55, whereas this rolls 45, but your chances of getting that are much higher. And then this is class dependent too, but like if I'm playing a Frozen Orb Sork, the chance for Frozen Orb projectiles to cast twice, the chance for Rapid Fire to activate twice, Ball Lightning to activate twice, any sort of skill that you're playing on your character, there's usually some sort of bonus, and you want to get just the flat damage or the elements damage, and then you can go for whatever skill that you're using. Remember, you can't double up on it. However, if you're running two-handed, this number will actually increase, and you can also run this on your offhand, so it's pretty massive on that. Now let's go ahead and move it to the other side, and we got a scooch this over so you guys can actually read it properly. So as far as the amulet goes, over here, I put these ones in red, like I kind of overlapped them. The reason why is it's class dependent. Usually there's like 2 or 3 things that you want for your class. Like it could be Avalanche on the Sorceress with the Frozen Orb and something else. These are mostly class dependent. So it depends on what you're playing for the aspect here. But other things that are really great to roll on Amulet now, you can actually get crit strike chance on Amulet, which you couldn't get before unless it was like on like the Banished Lord's Talisman. But movement speed and cooldown reduction are key here. You can also get resource cost reduction on Amulet. However, that has actually been nerfed unless you master craft it and you get a super high number on that. It's better to get it in a couple other categories because crit strike chance is a very, very important stat. And depending on the build that you're playing, cooldown reduction is a very, very important stat. You can also get a cooldown reduction for your mobility skill as well, and then you can just get any other damage, and it depends on what you're playing for your temper over here. You can get regular movement speed. Most builds, regular movement speed is great, but if you want to play like the crazy teleport build, then yeah, you want the mobility cooldown, maybe charge, or whatever you're playing. Cooldown reduction on that can be okay as well. The first temper slot is kind of optional. It's class dependent. But the other ones like movement speed, cooldown reduction, heck, you get like life on it. But the main one that you want is usually going to be crit strike chance because you're limited on how much crit that you can kind of get in a lot of categories in Diablo 4. And then a lot of rings in the game will have some sort of way for you to gain resource. If you do need resource, it only is going to be something that you can apply in rings. However, you can actually apply it on amulets now, which is actually really cool if you need to do it on this. But your main source of like your bonus damage, because amulet does give you 50% bonus, put it on that one if you really need to get like the highest numbers or the two-handed. But specifically getting some sort of mana regen could be key for your build, so keep that in mind as well. So that's why I throw the recharging aspect, something to do with mana or regen with your character build. So you can get crit strike chance just like you normally could. You can also get res to all res, and then you can actually get some sort of sorceress passives or your class's passives, and then you can just get natural finesse. You can also look at some sort of resource generation. That can be resource cost reduction. That can be a lot of things. But there's another brand new thing that can roll on rings, which is over here on this one. So I put a Cursed Touch. This is another thing that is key for certain classes like the Sorceress, which don't have an easy source of like exploit just to apply it. Like you could on Rogue, you could just hit the target once and it's just vulnerable, right? Which makes it really easy. You can actually get a chance to make enemies vulnerable on a lucky hit. That only does last 2 seconds, but that can be increased if you mastercraft it. But on top of that, a Cursed Touch can be an okay thing to roll on your ring. Again, it depends on the class that you're playing if you have the ability to apply vulnerability. But getting attack speed is a nice thing to get, which is newer. And then lucky hit if you need it. And then again, you can get on temper, you can get your class damage or your element damage or some sort of like just flat damage. Again, I think rolling flat damage is better, but I mixed it up over here so you guys can kind of see a difference. But yeah, resource cost reduction is good. There's a few different variants of that, so make sure you have some sort of source of vulnerability. If you don't want to go ahead and put it on your bar, put it here. It could be excellent. You can even double up on getting 2 of those chances for vulnerable. Depending on what you're playing, it is going to be a lucky hit chance, but you could mastercraft that and that could be a very high number, and it'll also increase the duration. And then for your offhand, or depends on the class you're playing obviously, but this can actually change. Cooldown reduction is always going to be one of the best stats, and crit strike chance rolls on the offhands, which is really great, and then chance to restore primary resource. And over here it doesn't have the ability to actually put 2 tempers. For some reason it's broken right now. Keep in mind all the builder websites kind of have some issues right now because this is brand new for season 4, and you'll see where it says like plus some sort of natural finesse, which is just like the offensive flat damage, or you can get the cold damage, but it's a harder thing to hit the higher rolls on it. And on top of that, because there's just so many more to roll, your RNG is going to be worse. But this also allows you to apply, just like on your weapon, the chance for whatever skill that you're using. So if I'm playing Frozen Orb, I want like a chance to get another Frozen Orb. I think it's up to 15% before you mastercraft it, but you can get a higher chance. Now there's also a few other things that have changed in season 4, and the other things are the gems. So pretty much across the board, most likely people will want to run vulnerable damage versus crit unless you have 100% crit, which you can do with the Sorceress. And then also for the gems over here, you can actually get main stat in the armor. So you can go more on the offensive, but with all the classes, like with the sorceress, you get more resistances if you throw in the +2 intelligence. So it's offensive and defensive. So if you just need a couple more resistances, you could go for this. But honestly, I think rubies are just going to be overall much better. I'm just mentioning that. And then if you want to throw in skulls, you can. But again, if you want to go for the highest level of content, the easiest way is just throw in disobedience and juggernaut. That's the easiest way to go ahead and just cap out your armor, and you get like 20k armor. And then as far as your jewelry goes, again, you can throw in diamonds just to max out your resistances if you need it, or skulls. There's not really one really good thing that you can go to for everything. If you need one specific res, then by all means just go for that one. But that's going to wrap it up. That's going to be basically the best in slot for your builds in Season 4. If anything does change, I'll update you guys with a future video, but this pretty much looks like it's going to be the best things. Again, I know there might be someone out there playing Thorns or some niche build, and maybe we can make a follow-up to more niche things in this game, but that's going to wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed the video, if you want to learn more about Diablo 4 and min-max, hit subscribe to the bell. We'll make an updated guide if we need to, or maybe for a very specific build like Thorns. Obviously, things will change. But take care. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.